The cold metal shackles tightened around Commander Adrian Cross's wrists as two Xelari guards dragged him through the grand halls of the palace. The air smelled of burning incense and alien metals, a mix of something ancient and powerful. Despite the rough treatment, Adrian kept his head high. He refused to show weakness. The guards pushed him forward, stopping in front of an enormous throne. It was crafted from black stone, glowing with strange symbols. Sitting on it was Queen Seraphis, the ruler of the Xelari Empire. She was tall, elegant, and radiated authority. Her deep violet skin shimmered under the dim lights, and her golden armor reflected her status as a conqueror. Her piercing reptilian eyes studied Adrian with mild curiosity, as if he were nothing more than an insect caught in her web. Adrian didn't bow. One of the guards growled and forced him to his knees. He clenched his teeth as pain shot up his legs, but he remained silent. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of hearing him groan. The queen leaned forward, resting her elbow on the armrest. A human, she mused. I expected someone. Larger. Stronger. Adrian smirked, his lips still stained with dried blood from the last fight. Funny. I expected an alien queen to be taller. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The guards stiffened, one reaching for his weapon, but Seraphis lifted her hand, stopping them. Her expression remained unreadable, but there was something new in her gaze. Interest. You are bold for a prisoner, and you are arrogant for a queen. Adrian's voice was calm, controlled. But then again, that's what happens when you're surrounded by people who are too afraid to challenge you. Seraphis raised an eyebrow. You think I can be challenged? I don't think. I know. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The queen finally rose from her throne, stepping down the polished black stairs, her armored boots clicking with each step. She stopped just inches from Adrian, looking down at him. You do not seem afraid of me, she noted. Adrian met her gaze, unblinking. Should I be? Her lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. All humans who stood before me have either begged for their lives or sworn loyalty to me. You will do one of the two soon enough. Adrian let out a short laugh. Not likely. Seraphis stared at him for a long moment, then turned away, pacing slowly. Your people resisted us. They fought bravely, but they were outmatched. Their surrender was inevitable. Now, Earth belongs to the Xelari Empire. Adrian's jaw tightened. He knew Earth had suffered heavy losses, but he refused to believe humanity was truly defeated. He had seen how resilient his people were. They never stopped fighting. Humanity doesn't surrender, he said firmly. You might think you own Earth, but we don't break that easily. Seraphis chuckled, amused. Such foolish pride. You are just flesh and bone. What can a human do against the might of an empire that spans 100 worlds? Adrian tilted his head. Empires fall. Always have, always will. Her eyes darkened. The room felt colder. You speak as if you have already won. I speak as someone who knows history, Adrian replied. Conquerors think they are untouchable, until they aren't. Seraphis stopped pacing and turned to face him again. There was something dangerous in her eyes now, but not anger. No, she was intrigued. Very well, she said. If you refuse to bow, then I will enjoy breaking you myself. She gestured toward her guards. Take him to the trials. Let us see how long his defiance lasts. Adrian was yanked to his feet. The guards began pulling him away. But before he left, Seraphis spoke again. Do not die too quickly, human. I want to see just how strong your kind truly is. Adrian chuckled, wiping blood from his chin. Oh, don't worry, Your Majesty. You're going to see things about humans that will shock you. With that, the doors slammed shut behind him, leaving Seraphis staring at the empty space where he stood, her mind filled with a thought she hadn't expected. This human was different. The metal doors slammed shut, leaving Commander Adrian Cross alone in the dimly lit chamber. His wrists still ached from the shackles, but he ignored the pain. His mind was sharp, focused. The Exilari thought they could break him. They were wrong. The guards led him through a series of narrow corridors, their boots clanking against the metal floor. The air smelled of oil and burning plasma, a reminder that he was deep inside an alien warship. They finally stopped in front of a massive arena-like structure, the doors hissing open. A rush of cold air hit Adrian's face as he was pushed inside. Above him, thousands of Scifi spectators filled the stands, their strange voices hissing and clicking in excitement. At the far end, sitting on a high throne, was Queen Seraphis. She leaned forward slightly, her golden armor shining under the artificial lights. "Welcome, human," she announced, her voice echoing through the arena. "You claim humans do not break. Let us see if that is true." Adrian smirked. "You sure love your speeches." The queen's lips curled in amusement. She raised her hand, and the arena floor shifted. Heavy doors slid open, revealing the first challenge. A massive four-legged beast, its body covered in thick, armored scales, and its eyes burning with rage. The crowd roared in excitement. "Defeat the Korlax," Seraphis commanded, "and we shall see if your strength is more than just words." The beast snarled and charged at Adrian with terrifying speed. The first trial. Adrian barely dodged the first swipe of the creature's massive claws. The Korlax was fast for its size, and its thick hide made it nearly impossible to damage. But Adrian wasn't looking for weaknesses yet. He was testing it. The beast lunged again, its powerful jaws snapping just inches from his face. Adrian rolled aside, grabbing a loose piece of metal from the ground. Not ideal, but better than nothing. Seraphis watched, intrigued. Most prisoners panicked at this stage. They ran or froze, making themselves easy prey. But Adrian was calm. He studied the beast, noting its movements, how it turned slightly slower to the left, how its back leg hesitated for a fraction of a second. It was injured. A plan formed in his mind. When the Korlax lunged again, Adrian did something unexpected. He ran straight at it. The crowd gasped. At the last moment, Adrian dove underneath, slamming the metal shard into the beast's injured leg. The Korlax screeched, its body twisting in pain. Adrian didn't stop. He grabbed a loose chain from the arena floor, jumped onto the beast's back, and wrapped the chain around its throat, pulling tight. The Korlax thrashed, but Adrian held on, tightening the grip, cutting off its air. Within moments, the beast collapsed, unconscious. Silence filled the arena. Then, slowly, cheers erupted, not just from the crowd, but from some of Seraphis's own warriors. The queen sat back, her expression unreadable. Interesting. The second trial. Adrian barely had time to catch his breath before the floor shifted again. This time, a group of Scifi warriors stepped into the arena. Seraphis rose from her throne. "A beast is one thing," she said. "Now let us see how you fare against my finest soldiers." The warriors encircled Adrian, their energy blades humming with deadly light. They were bigger, faster, stronger. The odds were against him. Good. He liked it that way. The first warrior struck, swinging his blade in a fast, precise arc. Adrian ducked, twisting his body to avoid the attack. He grabbed the warrior's arm, using his own momentum against him, and sent him crashing to the ground. The second Scifi lunged. Adrian dodged again, but this time, a third warrior kicked him hard in the ribs. Pain exploded through his body, but he refused to fall. He grinned, wiping blood from his mouth. "That all you got?" The crowd roared. Seraphis leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. This human was enjoying himself. The Scifi warriors hesitated, just for a second. But Adrian saw it. He exploited it. Diving forward, he grabbed a fallen warrior's blade, activating it in one swift motion. Before his enemies could react, he struck, disabling one, then another, moving like a shadow in the wind. Within minutes, All the warriors lay on the ground, groaning in defeat. Adrian stood in the center, breathing heavily, gripping the alien blade. He looked up at Seraphis. Still think humans are weak? The queen did not answer immediately. For the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Excitement. She lifted a hand, silencing the crowd. "Enough," she declared. The guards stepped forward, surrounding Adrian, but they did not drag him away. Seraphis's golden eyes met his. "You are different, human." Adrian smirked. "Told you." The queen studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "Take him to the palace chambers. He is no longer a prisoner." The crowd gasped. Adrian tilted his head. "So, what am I now?" Seraphis smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. "You are a puzzle I intend to solve." Adrian chuckled. "Good luck with that, Your Majesty." As the guards led him out of the arena, Seraphis watched him go, her mind filled with one thought. This human was unlike any she had ever encountered. And for the first time, she was genuinely curious to see what he would do next. Commander Adrian Cross sat in a grand chamber, unlike anything he had seen before. The walls were carved from dark stone, decorated with ancient symbols that pulsed faintly with energy. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of metal and incense. This wasn't a prison cell. This was something else. A guard stood at the entrance, watching him closely. Adrian leaned back on the luxurious cushioned seat, stretching his sore muscles. His ribs still ached from the earlier fight, but the pain only reminded him that he was alive. Then the doors hissed open. Queen Seraphis entered, her golden armor reflecting the dim light. Her presence was commanding, but there was something else in her gaze now. Curiosity, interest, amusement. Adrian didn't stand. "To what do I owe the honor, Your Majesty?" he said with a smirk. The guards tensed, but Seraphis simply raised a hand, signaling them to stay put. "You surprised me, human," she admitted. "Few make it through the trials. None have bested my warriors as you did." Adrian shrugged. "Maybe they weren't as tough as you thought." Seraphis's eyes gleamed. "Or maybe you are not as weak as I expected." She took a slow step forward, studying him. "Tell me, Adrian Cross, what drives you? What keeps you fighting when others would surrender?" Adrian met her gaze. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." He exhaled, leaning forward slightly. "Humans are different. We don't break just because we're outnumbered. We don't give up just because the odds are bad. We fight because the alternative is worse." Seraphis tilted her head. "You fight because you fear defeat." Adrian shook his head. "No, we fight because we believe in something bigger than ourselves." The queen's expression remained unreadable, but her gaze lingered on him. "Then let us test that belief." She stepped back, removing her golden cloak, revealing the intricate armor beneath. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Another challenge." Seraphis smirked. "Not just any challenge, the duel." The guard stiffened, surprised by her words. "You want to fight me?" Adrian asked, crossing his arms. "I want to see what makes humans so special." Adrian chuckled, shaking his head. "You must be really bored, Your Majesty." Seraphis' lips curled into a small, dangerous smile. "Perhaps, or perhaps I enjoy the idea of proving you wrong." She gestured toward the training arena just beyond the chamber. "We fight until one of us yields," she declared. "No weapons, just skill." Adrian considered for a moment, then stood, rolling his shoulders. "All right, Your Majesty. Let's see if you're as tough as you think." The duel begins. The training arena was smaller than the one from the trials, but it was built for warriors, not spectators. Seraphis removed her heavy golden gauntlets, flexing her hands. Adrian, meanwhile, tested his footing, feeling the smooth stone floor beneath his boots. The moment the duel began, Seraphis moved first. Fast. Adrian barely dodged her first strike, feeling the air shift as her fist passed his cheek. She was stronger than any opponent he had ever faced. But strength wasn't everything. He countered with a quick jab, but Seraphis blocked it easily, twisting his arm and forcing him back. Adrian smirked. "Not bad, Your Majesty." Seraphis's eyes narrowed. "You talk too much." She attacked again, faster this time. Adrian dodged left, then right, reading her movements, analyzing her patterns. Then he saw it. A slight hesitation in her stance, a small opening. Instead of dodging, he moved in, twisting his body and sweeping her legs out from under her. For the first time, Queen Seraphis stumbled. The guards gasped. No one had ever knocked their queen off balance before. Seraphis caught herself and laughed softly. "Impressive." Adrian grinned. "Told you. Humans don't break easy." She attacked again, this time more carefully, her blows precise. Adrian was forced on the defensive, blocking, dodging, waiting for another opening. Minutes passed, and both were breathing harder now. Seraphis finally stepped back, holding up a hand. "Enough." Adrian exhaled, running a hand through his damp hair. "Tired already?" She smirked. "You are not like the others, Adrian Cross. You do not fear me. You do not bow. That is rare." Adrian tilted his head. "So what now? You going to throw me back in a cell?" Seraphis was silent for a moment. Then she spoke. "No, I have a better idea." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" The queen's gaze held something different this time. Something unreadable. "You claim humans fight for something greater than themselves," she said. "Then prove it." Adrian frowned. "How?" Seraphis stepped closer, her golden eyes gleaming. "Fight for me." Silence filled the chamber. Adrian blinked. "Come again." Seraphis smirked. "You are strong, Adrian. Clever. You could be useful. You could be more than a prisoner." Adrian crossed his arms. "And what do I get in return?" Seraphis's expression was serious now. "A chance to prove that humans are as powerful as you claim." Adrian studied her for a long moment. He wasn't a fool. He knew she was testing him, seeing if he could be controlled. But he also knew something else. She was starting to respect him. Finally, he sighed. "All right, Your Majesty. Let's see where this goes." Seraphis smiled. A real, genuine smile. "Good. Let us begin." Commander Adrian Cross stood in the middle of the training arena, breathing steadily. Across from him, Queen Seraphis observed him with an unreadable expression. Their duel had ended, but something had changed. The auxiliary queen, who once saw humans as weak, was now intrigued by him. Adrian could see it in her golden eyes. She had expected him to submit, to fear her. Instead, he had challenged her, and now she saw him differently. But was that a good thing? An offer with hidden meaning. The queen gestured to the guards. "Bring him with me." The warriors exchanged glances but obeyed. Adrian followed Seraphis through the halls of the palace. He walked freely now, no chains, no restraints. A sign of trust, or perhaps a test. They entered a private chamber, its walls covered with intricate carvings. A table sat in the center, holographic images floating above it. Maps, battle plans, the shifting borders of the Siluri Empire. Seraphis turned to him. "You are strong, Adrian. Stronger than I expected." Adrian smirked. "Glad you finally noticed." She ignored his remark. "I have a proposition for you." Adrian crossed his arms. "I'm listening." Seraphis tapped the holographic display. "There are those within my empire who believe I am too lenient. They see my interest in you as weakness." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Your own people are questioning you." She nodded. "Some of my generals whisper of rebellion. They believe I should rule with absolute strength, without mercy. And they see you, a human who defied me, as a threat." Adrian leaned forward. Let me guess. They want me dead. Seraphis' eyes gleamed. Yes, but I have a different plan. Adrian exhaled, already guessing where this was going. You want me to prove them wrong. Seraphis smiled slightly. I want you to fight for me, Adrian. Not as a prisoner, but as a warrior of the Xilari Empire. Silence filled the room. Adrian considered his options. He had fought his entire life for humanity, for survival. Could he now fight for an alien empire? Seraphis watched him closely. You told me humans fight for something greater than themselves. Show me that strength. Adrian took a deep breath. And if I refuse? The queen's voice remained calm. Then you are free to leave. I do not keep those who do not wish to stay. Her words surprised him. He had expected a threat, but instead, she gave him a choice. He studied her face. There was no deception, no trickery. She truly wanted to see what he would do. Adrian smirked. All right, Your Majesty. I'll fight for you, but under one condition. Seraphis raised an eyebrow. Name it. Adrian's expression turned serious. I don't follow blindly. If I see something wrong, I speak up. If I don't agree with your orders, I push back. The queen's lips curled slightly. You already do that. Adrian chuckled. Then I guess we have a deal. The silent opposition. Not everyone was pleased with Seraphis' decision. As Adrian walked through the palace, he could feel the stares. The Xilari warriors did not trust him. To them, he was an outsider, a threat. But Adrian didn't care. He had faced worse before. As he reached the training grounds, a tall Xilari officer stepped in his path. His dark armor gleamed, and his sharp reptilian eyes were filled with hatred. You do not belong here, human, the warrior growled. Adrian smirked. And yet, here I am. The warrior bared his teeth. Our queen may tolerate you, but we do not. You are weak. You should have died in the arena. Adrian tilted his head. You seem upset. You wanted to fight me yourself. The Xilari soldier sneered. A human is not worthy of battle with me. Adrian shrugged, then stopped talking. For a moment, the warrior looked as if he would attack, but another figure appeared, a royal guard, one of Seraphis' most loyal soldiers. Enough, the guard said firmly. The queen has made her decision. If you question it, you question her rule. The warrior hesitated, then finally stepped back. But the hostility did not fade. Adrian sighed. This was going to be a long day. An unlikely alliance. Later that night, Adrian stood on a balcony, looking over the alien city below. The stars above were unfamiliar, distant. Seraphis stepped beside him, her golden armor now replaced by a simple dark robe. She was still a queen, but at this moment, she looked more like a warrior than a ruler. You handled yourself well today, she said. Adrian smirked. Is that a compliment? She chuckled softly. Perhaps. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Then Seraphis spoke again. You do not trust me yet, and I do not fully trust you. But I believe you are more than just a soldier. Adrian turned to face her. And what do you believe I am? Seraphis met his gaze. A warrior without a home, perhaps even a leader. Adrian exhaled, shaking his head. I'm just a man trying to survive. The queen's expression softened slightly. Then let us see what survival looks like. Together. For the first time, Adrian saw something in her gaze that he hadn't expected. Respect. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The air inside the palace felt tense. Adrian could sense it the moment he stepped into the main hall. The Xilari warriors he passed stared at him with cold eyes, their expressions unreadable but heavy with discontent. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He had agreed to fight for Queen Seraphis, but that didn't mean her people accepted him. They saw him as an outsider, a human who didn't belong in their empire. And some of them weren't just watching. They were waiting. The silent warning. Later that evening, Adrian was in the training grounds, testing a newly forged auxiliary blade. The weapon was light but strong, its edge humming with energy. He swung it a few times, getting a feel for its weight. Behind him, someone approached. It was Varric, one of Seraphis' royal guards. Unlike the others, Varric had never shown open hostility toward Adrian, but tonight there was something off in his expression. "Be careful, human," Varric said in a low voice. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Something you want to tell me?" Varric hesitated. He glanced around, as if making sure no one else could hear. "Not everyone follows the Queen as loyally as they claim." Adrian frowned. "You mean there are traitors?" Varric didn't answer directly, but his silence spoke volumes. "You earned Seraphis' respect, but some believe that makes her weak," Varric continued. "They whisper in the shadows, waiting for a moment to strike." Adrian exhaled. He had seen this happen before. Powerful leaders always had enemies, sometimes within their own walls. "And let me guess," Adrian said, gripping the sword, "they're not just after her." Varric gave a small nod. "You are a symbol of everything they despise. If they move against the Queen, they will come for you first." Adrian smirked. "Good. I like it when enemies come to me instead of the other way around." Varric sighed. "You don't understand, human. They are not fools. They won't fight you directly. They will strike when you least expect it." Adrian's expression darkened. "Then let's make sure I'm ready." The night of the betrayal. That night, the palace halls were quiet, too quiet. Adrian was in his chamber, but he couldn't sleep. Something in his gut told him that danger was close. Then, a sound. A slight click, like metal shifting against stone. Adrian reacted instantly, rolling off his bed just as a blade stabbed into the pillow where his head had been moments ago. A dark figure lunged at him, but Adrian was already moving. He grabbed a nearby chair, swinging it with all his strength. It smashed into the assassin, sending him stumbling back. The attacker hissed, auxiliary, dressed in black armor, his face covered by a mask. Before Adrian could strike again, more figures appeared, stepping out of the shadows. 5 of them. Adrian exhaled, gripping the only weapon he had, a small dagger on the nearby table. "You guys couldn't do this in the morning. I had a long day." The assassins didn't respond. They'd move as one, surrounding him. Adrian acted first. He threw the dagger, not at the nearest enemy, but at the light source in the room. The blade shattered the glowing crystal, plunging the chamber into darkness. The assassins hesitated, but Adrian didn't. He rushed forward, using the darkness to his advantage. He grabbed one assassin by the arm, twisting it sharply. A crack echoed as the attacker collapsed. Another swung a blade at him. Adrian dodged, grabbing the attacker's wrist and slamming him into the wall. But he was outnumbered. A sharp pain exploded in his side as one of the assassins managed to stab him. Adrian gritted his teeth. No time for pain. He tore the blade free and drove his elbow into the attacker's face, knocking him down. Then, a blast of golden energy filled the room. The assassins froze. Adrian turned to see Queen Seraphis standing in the doorway. Her eyes burned with rage, her golden armor reflecting the dim light. "Enough," she commanded. The remaining assassins hesitated. Then, without a word, they vanished into the shadows, escaping into the palace corridors. Seraphis rushed to Adrian's side, her eyes scanning his wound. "You're hurt." Adrian chuckled. "Not the worst I've had." Her gaze turned deadly. "I will find who sent them." Adrian sighed, leaning against the table. "We already know. It's the ones who don't want you in power." Seraphis clenched her fists. "This is an act of war." The aftermath. The next morning, the palace was in chaos. The queen had ordered a full investigation, and every suspicious figure in her court was being questioned. Adrian, now bandaged but still standing, walked beside Seraphis as they entered the main hall. The queen's advisors and generals stood waiting. Some looked nervous. Seraphis' golden eyes scanned the room. There has been an attack on this palace. On me. On one of my warriors. Asterisk asterisk, she gestured toward Adrian. This will not go unanswered. The room was silent. Some of the generals looked at Adrian, their expressions cold, but none dared to speak against the queen. Adrian smirked slightly. Looks like someone's scared. Seraphis turned to him. Stay close to me. Whoever planned this will try again. Adrian tilted his head. I thought I was just a human prisoner a few days ago. Seraphis' gaze softened slightly. You are more than that now. For the first time since arriving in the Auxiliary Empire, Adrian felt something strange. Not just respect, but trust. And in Seraphis' eyes, he saw something else. A warrior who was starting to believe in him. The halls of the Auxiliary Palace buzzed with tension. Ever since the assassination attempt, the atmosphere had changed. The air felt heavier, the guards more alert, and whispers filled the corridors. Commander Adrian Cross walked beside Queen Seraphis, his side still aching from the wound he had received. The cut was not deep, but it reminded him of one thing. His enemies were getting bolder. Seraphis, too, was different. The cold, proud ruler he had first met was still there, but now he saw something else. A warrior who was angry, calculating, and preparing for war. They will strike again, Adrian said as they entered the war chamber. Seraphis nodded. And this time, we will be ready. The queen's top commanders and generals stood waiting. A holographic map of the empire flickered before them, marking key locations. The traitors are hiding within our own ranks, one general stated. They blend in, waiting for the right moment. Then we will make their moment come sooner, Seraphis said coldly. Adrian smirked. You're planning a trap. Seraphis glanced at him. Not a trap, a lesson. They think they can challenge me, that they can remove me from power. I will remind them why I am queen. Adrian folded his arms. I like the way you think. The plan. Seraphis turned to her advisors. We will arrange a gathering of all my highest-ranking warriors, a show of strength, unity. The traitors will see this as the perfect opportunity to strike. One of the commanders frowned. And when they do, Seraphis' golden eyes gleamed. We will strike first. Adrian chuckled. Let me guess. I get to be part of this, don't I? Seraphis smirked slightly. You seem eager for a fight. Adrian stretched his shoulders. Well, after being stabbed in my sleep, I'd say I owe them one. Seraphis' expression grew serious. You will fight at my side. When the time comes, we end this, together. Adrian's gaze met hers. Something unspoken passed between them. They were no longer enemies, no longer prisoner and queen. Now, they were allies. The gathering. The grand hall of the palace was filled with Auxiliary warriors, commanders, and high-ranking officials. The massive stone pillars were lit by torches, casting flickering shadows across the floor. Seraphis stood at the front, her golden armor gleaming, her presence commanding. Adrian stood to her right, dressed in Auxiliary battle gear, the strange but sturdy fabric feeling unfamiliar, but surprisingly comfortable. He could feel the tension in the air. Some warriors glanced at him with distrust, while others watched the queen closely, waiting for a sign. Seraphis stepped forward, her voice echoing through the hall. The Auxiliary Empire stands on the edge of betrayal. The room fell silent. Cowards hide among us, plotting in the shadows, waiting to strike. Her golden eyes swept over the crowd. They believe I am weak, that I have lost my power, that they can take what is mine. A murmur spread through the hall. Seraphis lifted her chin. Let them come forward now, and they will be spared. Silence. Then, movement. A group of warriors, 5 in total, stepped out from the crowd. Adrian's hand instinctively went to his weapon. It was happening. The leader of the traitors, a high-ranking commander named Kelros, sneered. You have lost your way. Seraphis, the Empire needs strength, not weakness. Seraphis remained calm. And you believe I am weak? Kelros smirked. You let a human stand beside you. That is proof enough. Adrian sighed. Always about me, huh? Kelros snarled. You are an outsider. You do not belong in our empire. Adrian smirked. And yet, here I am. Kelros raised his hand, a silent signal. More traders stepped forward. Adrian counted at least 15. Too many to fight head-on. Seraphis's voice was cold. Then let us see who is truly weak. She gave a simple nod. And then the hall exploded into battle. The battle for the throne. The traders attacked first, their energy blades flashing in the dim light. Adrian reacted instantly, drawing his own blade and blocking the first strike. The force of the attack nearly pushed him back, but he twisted, knocking the enemy's weapon aside. Seraphis, meanwhile, moved like a storm, cutting through the traders with deadly precision. Her golden armor reflected the firelight, making her look like a war goddess. Adrian fought beside her, dodging, countering, striking. The Exilari warriors were strong, but Adrian was faster. He weaved between attacks, using his human instincts, his unpredictability to throw them off. A blade sliced past his shoulder, but he barely flinched. Pain didn't matter. Winning did. One of the traders lunged at Seraphis from behind. Adrian didn't think. He acted. He grabbed the trader's arm, twisting it hard and sending him crashing to the ground. Before the enemy could recover, Adrian slammed his knee into his chest, knocking him out cold. Seraphis glanced at him, her eyes unreadable. You saved me. Adrian smirked. You can owe me later. The end of the rebellion. Within minutes, the traitors lay defeated. Kelros, wounded but still standing, glared at Seraphis. You have made a mistake, Queen. More will rise against you. Seraphis stepped forward, towering over him. Let them try. With a simple motion, she signaled the guards. Kelros and the remaining rebels were taken away. The hall was silent once more. Adrian exhaled, wiping blood from his brow. Well, that was fun. Seraphis turned to him, her golden eyes meeting his. You stood with me when others would have run. Adrian shrugged. You're starting to grow on me, Your Majesty. For the first time, Seraphis smiled. Not a smirk, not a sneer. A real smile. Come, Adrian, she said. Our battle is not over yet. As they walked out of the hall side by side, Adrian realized something. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for something bigger. The echoes of the battle still lingered in the Grand Hall. The rebellion had been crushed, but the weight of what had happened still hung in the air. Adrian stood beside Queen Seraphis, his breathing heavy, his body aching from the fight. Around them, the remaining Xilari warriors cleaned the battlefield, removing the fallen traitors and securing the prisoners. Seraphis's golden eyes scanned the hall. She had won, but she was not celebrating. She was thinking. A kingdom in chaos. The rebellion had failed, but it had left its mark. There were divisions in the empire, doubts in her leadership. Some warriors still resented Adrian's presence. He could feel their glares as he stood beside the queen. Seraphis turned to him. They will not stop here. The traitors who escaped will try again. Adrian crossed his arms. Then we finish this before they get the chance. Seraphis's lips curled into a slight smirk. You think like a warrior. Adrian shrugged. I think like someone who doesn't like being stabbed in his sleep. Her smirk faded into something more serious. Then let us end this war before it begins. The final hunt. Seraphis's intelligence officers had tracked the remaining rebels to a distant Xilari stronghold, a fortress hidden deep in the mountains of Sci-Fi, an ancient land far from the capital. The queen didn't hesitate. She gathered her most loyal warriors, including Adrian, and led a strike team to eliminate the last of the traitors before they could regroup. As the ship flew toward the stronghold, Adrian stood by the window, watching the alien landscape below. The mountains stretched for miles, covered in mist and shadow. Seraphis stepped beside him. "Once this is over, you will have a choice to make." Adrian glanced at her. What kind of choice? Her golden eyes met his. "You came here as a prisoner. Now you stand as my strongest warrior, but you are still human. When this battle is done, you must decide. Will you stay or will you leave?" Adrian exhaled. He hadn't thought about it. He had been fighting for survival since the day he was captured. Now, for the first time, he had a different kind of battle, one within himself. He looked back at Seraphis. "Let's survive this fight first. Then we'll talk about choices." Seraphis gave a small nod. Agreed. The battle for the throne. The ship landed near the rebel stronghold. The area was fortified, guarded by elite warriors loyal to the rebellion. Adrian, Seraphis, and their forces moved quietly through the rocky terrain, using the shadows to their advantage. Then, the attack began. Seraphis led the charge, her golden blade slicing through the enemy ranks with precise, fluid movements. Adrian fought beside her, his human instincts and training making him unpredictable. He dodged energy blasts, countered attacks, and struck with deadly efficiency. The battle was brutal. The rebels fought with desperation, knowing this was their last chance to win. Adrian found himself face to face with Kelros, the traitor leader. Kelros sneered. "The human fights beside the queen. How pathetic." Adrian smirked. "You talk too much." Kelros lunged. Their blades clashed, sparks flying, as Adrian dodged and countered. The fight was fast, brutal, but Adrian was faster. With one final strike, he disarmed Kelros, sending the traitor crashing to the ground. Kelros looked up, fear in his eyes. "Finish it, human." Adrian hesitated. He wasn't a killer. Seraphis stepped forward. "You betrayed your people, your queen. You do not deserve mercy." She raised her blade, but Adrian stopped her. "Killing him won't change what happened." Seraphis studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered her weapon. "Take him away," she ordered. Kelros was dragged off, his fate sealed. The battle was over. The rebellion was crushed. A new beginning. Back at the palace, the celebrations began. The Xilari warriors cheered for their queen. The throne was secure once more, and the rebellion had been defeated. Adrian stood on the balcony, looking out at the city below. He had fought wars before. He had survived battles. But this felt different. This wasn't just about winning. This was about belonging. Seraphis stepped beside him. "You have a decision to make." Adrian exhaled. "Yeah." She faced him fully. "Do you wish to return to your people, or do you stay?" Adrian looked at her. He thought about everything he had been through. The battles, the survival, the fights. But he also thought about her. She had challenged him, respected him, stood beside him in battle. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a purpose. He smirked. "Your Majesty, I think you're stuck with me." Seraphis's golden eyes held something he had never seen before. Not just respect, not just trust, something more. She smiled softly. "Then let us see what the future holds." Together, as they stood side by side, Adrian knew one thing for sure. He had not just found a place to fight. He had found a place to belong.